All right, so objective 2. Now we're going to look at, building this confidence interval. So first thing let's talk about is the generic confidence interval formula. So remember the point estimate is your statistic. So in 7374, that was our p hat. In this section is going to be x bar. Then you add or subtract what's called the margin of error. And the margin of error is built by this critical value multiplier and the standard error of the statistic. Okay, so if we try to apply the population proportion confidence interval formula with a population mean, it would look like this. Here's your sample value x bar plus or minus your z star times your population standard deviation over the square root of n. Because again, this was the standard deviation formula for your sampling distribution of x bar. However, there's an issue. Unfortunately, we don't know the population value or population mean mu, which means we won't know our sigma population standard deviation. So we can't use that in the formula, which means we can't use this formula for our confidence interval for a mean. But we do have sample data. So from the sample data, we can use the sample standard deviation to estimate sigma. But there's a problem. Things happen. Life's not as fair. It's not as fun. So we can't use z star as our critical value. It doesn't create big enough intervals. So we're going to have to use a new idea called t star. T star will be our critical value for your sample means. Okay. Now, T star has its own table. We don't have a stats applet like we do to find Z stars. We have to use a table. Let me show you what the table looks like right now. So that table is right here. So here's what it looks like. A couple of things that are important for your T star table. Down here is your confidence level, that's C%. Here's 95, here's 99, here's 90. And then over here on the far left is what's called the degrees of freedom, this DF. These are the two important values you need to know when you're trying to build a confidence interval for a mean. So let's take a look at how we're supposed to do this. Okay, step by step on the next slide. Okay. All right, so first, to find the T star value, first you want to identify the C%, and you want to find it at the bottom of table B. Okay, so find on the bottom row. Then you want to look on the left-hand side of table B, and you want to find your degrees of freedom. Your degrees of freedom is that DF value. To find the DF, you're going to take your sample size minus 1. Then, in the body of table B, all those numbers inside to 3 decimals, those are your T star values. You're going to follow your finger up from the confidence level. You're going to follow your finger to the right from the degrees of freedom, and you're going to match it up and find that corresponding T star value. And then if you noticed on the far left, I went through it quickly, I'll show you again, but degrees of freedom only have certain values. 1 through 30 are all listed. But once you get to 30, it starts counting by tens. I think once you get to 60, it counts to counting by 20. Once you get to 100, the next one's not till 1,000. So not all degrees of freedom are listed. So so this is important, if your degrees of freedom isn't listed, use the next degrees of freedom less than the actual one, which means round down. Round down. Okay. And we'll talk about that in our example. All right, cool. So I do have one example to do before we look at the actual example. So here, what if we're trying to find a 99% confidence interval and our sample size is 4? Well, on my bottom row, so this is the bottom of table B. This is our table B. I find the 99% confidence interval column. Okay, then I need to find my degrees of freedom by taking n minus 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. My degrees of freedom is 3. So over here are your degrees of freedom on the left-hand side. You need to go down until you find the 3. There's my 3. Okay, and now it just is about matching up. Go up from the 99%, go to the right from the 3, and bada bing, bada boom, there will be your T star value of 5.841. And again, this is just the multiplier to ensure that your interval is big enough for your capture rate, for your confidence level. Again, if the correct degrees of freedom isn't listed. Again, this note, if it's not listed, you need to use the next degrees of freedom less. Don't round up. Rounding up is bad. Don't round up. All right, so let's take a look-see here. So it says what? Critical value T star from table B should be used in constructing a confidence interval for the population mean, in each of the following settings. So a 95% confidence level or confidence interval based on a SRS of size n equals 12. So we have our confidence level 95. Our n value is 12. So to find your degrees of freedom, subtract 1. That is 11. So I'm going to go to my table B. I'm going to find 95% on the bottom row. So there's 95%. I'm going to find my degrees of freedom of 11 right here. It's at the very top, how I have it slid down. I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go over. And there is my T star. So for this problem, T star, sorry about that, T star equals 2.201. And we would use that to help build our confidence interval. All right, let's go back and do the second problem here. Okay, so the second problem says, what about a 90% confidence interval? And now our sample size is 48. So that's our n value, right? So to find your degrees of freedom, 48 minus 1 is 47. Now you'll notice that on the table, let's go there real fast. On the table, notice that 40, right? 30, it jumps to 40, 40 to 50. So 47 is in between 40 and 50. I know 47 is closer to 50, but you always round down. So your degrees of freedom is going to be 40 in this problem. I would prefer that you put that down on your paper somewhere so I know that you know that. So like what I do is I do degrees of freedom equals 48 minus 1, which is 47, but then I'll put 40 in parentheses to signify that I'm going to use 40. So 90% confidence, 40 is my degrees of freedom. Let's go find our T-star value. So I'm finding 90% confidence level. 40 is my degrees of freedom. Go up, go to the right, and there's your T-star for problem B. T-star equals 1.684. And that'll be the multiplier used to build my confidence interval. All right, great. So objective 3 is coming where we actually find the confidence intervals.